Hi, everyone. My name is John Rucynski, and in 2022, I had the wonderful opportunity to edit a volume entitled A Passion for Japan, a collection of personal narratives. And in this short presentation, I'd like to explain my inspiration for this book, but more importantly, give you a preview of some of the wonderful contributions. So let me jump right away into my slideshow. And let me start with some of the basic details. So the book features 30 contributors plus myself and coming from more than 10 different countries. And you can find it on Amazon, both in paperback and ebook format. So, what was my inspiration for this book? Well, I started by thinking of these different stages of culture shock. And myself, I've lived in Japan for more than 20 years, so I've met a lot of fellow expats, and some of them had no problems graduating, so to speak, to the acceptance stage, while others seem perennially stuck in the frustration stage. So, what separates such people? Now, additionally, I'm not satisfied with calling the final stage the acceptance stage. My own idea is to call this is my home stage, because I feel that's a huge step when we can finally call a new country our home. And in addition, I feel that acceptance stage, it's not just accepting the local manners or customs, but also being accepted by the local people. So, how can we do this and how can we feel at home? So, I think one important way is to have a passion, and this is connected to one of my favorite Japanese words, ikigai, which can be loosely translated as our reason for living, or another way, why we get out of bed in the morning. Of course, it's not exactly the same as a passion, but I feel that that's a strong connection and something very important to communicate with others. So, this was the theme I gave to potential contributors to this book. What is a passion that has helped with the acculturation process and/or simply enrich your life in Japan? So now let's meet some of the people in the book and their respective passions. Let's start with Karen Hill Anton, and her passion is shodo, or Japanese calligraphy, which we can also call the way of writing, because when a word ends in do, it means the way of something. Karen came to Japan back in the 1970s. She was with her husband, and his passion was Budo, or Japanese martial arts. Well, Karen wasn't particularly interested in martial arts, but she eventually found her own passion, again for shodo, or Japanese calligraphy, and eventually reached the nidan, or second level status of that. Another do, chado, or the way of tea, which commonly is called the tea ceremony in English. This is Randy Chanel Soe, and he originally moved to Hong Kong to study martial arts. But then when he moved to Japan, he became intrigued by the tea ceremony, or the way of tea, and he is now a grandmaster in the way of tea, and has also opened his own tea cafe in Kyoto. Now, one thing I love about this book is it can show the revival of traditional culture. There's a common argument that if more foreign people move to Japan, traditional Japanese culture will decrease. Now, obviously, this is nonsense. For example, here is Irina Hoka from Romania, and her passion is for Japanese pottery. And again, Japanese pottery, along with many other traditional forms, have been rapidly declining. But again, people like Irina have been reviving these cultures. I was all I was also excited to show the diversity of Japan through this book. Now, probably most of you have heard of taiko, or wadaiko, traditional Japanese drumming, but in Okinawa they also have asa, which is a different form of drumming, dancing, and singing. So different contributors to the book wrote about these two musical forms. Speaking more of Asa, so Judy Kambara here lived in Okinawa, and her son and daughter also did Asa. And so it just shows a wonderful way that they were welcomed into the local community by sharing this common passion. Now, of course, the book also has some chapters about Japanese matsuri or festivals. Carmen Thomas, also from Romania on the left here, she got behind the scenes access to Tenjin Matsuri of Osaka, which is one of the three main festivals of Japan. So that's another wonderful chapter. And the picture on the right, David Weber has actually attended more than 200 festivals or matsuri from Okinawa to Hokkaido. So again, we can see more of the diversity of Japan through these chapters. Now, your passion might be your job, or it might just be a hobby. For example, Katrina Watts on the left, she worked for the sumo, both sumo and amateur and international sumo, as a commentator and interpreter. Whereas Tim Craig on the right, his passion was just watching sumo. And that's him there with former wrestler Wakano Sato, who is now a stable master or oyakata. So speaking of sports, of course, I had to have a chapter about my own team, the Hanshin Tigers, but Trevor Ray Chura here talked about his passion for the Tigers. And he's actually worked for the Japanese media, thanks to both his love of the Tigers and his Japanese fluency. And he's also has a Facebook page, Hanshin Tigers English News, devoted to sharing English news about the Tigers with the world. And of course, also some chapters about nature and walking. Wes Lang here is probably the first American to hike the Hyakumeizan, or the 100 Great Mountains of Japan, and also has a Facebook page about that. So in his chapter talks about what he's learned from his love for the hiking in the Japanese mountains. Now, all passions in this book do not have to be something that we necessarily associate with Japanese culture. For example, Greg Ruo on the left, he was a volleyball referee in Canada, and he continued that when he came to Japan. So that has helped him find his place here in Japan. And on the right, Simon Bibby was a chess player back in his native England, but also when he came to Japan, he continued to play chess and even represented Japan in the World Chess Championships. So that created some funny moments, well, at the time, for when some officials at the tournament assumed he was sitting in the wrong chair because he had the chair with Japan. And myself, I found my passion for Japan in a strange way by joining the Ship for World Youth program that is sponsored by the Cabinet Office of Japan. And joining this program was just a way to, strengthen my love of Japan and help me see that I could be a long-term resident here and not just a short-term visitor. So let me return again to the stages of culture shock. And again, in this book, a lot of people talk about how their passion for something in Japan made them feel more at home. But we also have several chapters about houses or homes as a topic. So Victoria Yoshimura here has a very unique home, and that is a Buddhist temple in the mountains of Miyazaki Prefecture in Kyushu. So this is a temple with a 440-year history, and as you can see from her robe, Victoria is also an ordained Buddhist priest. Another interesting house, Rebecca Ottawa from Australia, she lives in this farmhouse in Shiga Prefecture, and her husband are 17th generation owners of this beautiful farmhouse in Shiga. And finally, one final home. Linda Ding here has made her home in Kamikatsu, which is known as the zero waste town of Japan in Tokushima Prefecture in Japan, in Shikoku, excuse me. So just talking about our future home and kamikatsu being a kind of model for sustainability in Japan. So again, that is just a sneak preview of some of the topics in this book. Again, altogether, 30 contributors from more than 10 different countries. So I'd like to thank you for listening, and you can find me on Facebook or Instagram if you search my name, John Rucynski, or the book title, A Passion for Japan. So again, A Passion for Japan, a collection of personal narratives published in 2022. And please, if you do read it, you're welcome to reach out to me because I love to connect with my readers. So again, thank you for listening to the details of A Passion for Japan.